Should I become a licensed real estate agent? When first-time real estate investors ask that question, they're typically not trying to change careers. They hope holding an agent's license will help them find more profitable investments. This line of thinking makes sense, but it's also flawed. A real estate agent license can offer some advantages, but not in the ways you might expect, and perhaps not in the ways that you need. The education and training needed to obtain an agent's license won't teach you investing skills. Being an agent and being an investor are distinct skill sets. But if you're suffering from a crippling dose of imposter syndrome, it might help you gain confidence. Let's dig deeper into the pros and cons of getting a real estate license. The value in becoming a licensed real estate agent. There are 3 major advantages to becoming a licensed agent: direct access to the MLS, receiving a credit or rebate of the buyer's agent commission, and confidence. Let's review each of these, starting with direct MLS access. Benefit number 1, direct access to the MLS. As we covered in an earlier lesson in this course, the MLS is the Multiple Listing Service. This is a private database on which real estate agents publish their listings. The MLS consolidates listings onto one centralized platform, which allows sellers to maximize the exposure of their listing, and it allows buyers to search from the widest selection of properties. It's good for both parties. There are hundreds of MLS databases around the country. One recent unverified estimate is that there are approximately 900 MLS databases nationwide. Each MLS is geographically specific and may cover a county, a collection of counties, a greater metropolitan area of a major city, or an entire state. The MLS is accessed directly by licensed real estate professionals, such as agents and brokers. However, there are many secondary databases which operate as public-facing websites targeted at retail home buyers, such as Zillow, Trulia, and Redfin. Now, these secondary portals often aggregate their data from the MLS. Additionally, many brokers will republish MLS data on their own company websites. This allows the general public to view MLS data as reported from secondary sources free of charge. Given that most members of the public can view MLS data from secondary sources, why does direct access matter? 2 reasons. Reason number 1, greater accuracy. Many secondary websites report inaccurate or conflicting data. In fact, it's common to visit multiple secondary websites and see conflicting information about the same property depending on which website you're visiting. If you're looking at public-facing websites targeted at retail home buyers, you may find that one website describes the property at 123 Main Street as containing 1,200 square feet, built in 1955, with 3 bedrooms. Yet, another website may describe that exact same property as having 1,550 square feet, with 4 bedrooms. One website might list the property taxes and previous sales history at some given amount, and the other website might list these as wildly different figures for the same property. The data found on the MLS is the primary source of data, and while nothing is 100% accurate, MLS data is, at a minimum, coming straight from the source. By the way, we've included a detailed video in this course about what to do when you find conflicting information about a property on secondary websites. Now, in that video, we show you step by step how to check the public records. So if you're having the problem that you're visiting multiple public-facing websites, these secondary websites that aggregate data from the MLS, and you're looking up a particular property and you're seeing conflicting information on different sites, check out that video because we'll show you exactly what to do in that situation. But moving on, improved accuracy is one of the 2 advantages of having direct MLS access. Let's move to the second advantage. You can view listings faster. There's often a lag time between when information is posted to the MLS versus when it's republished by a secondary website. The MLS is the first stop when a property is listed for sale. Yet these deals may not appear on a secondary website for up to another day or two. If you're in a hyper-competitive seller's market in which you want to make an offer on a property on the day that it's listed, direct MLS access can be advantageous. For example, if a fantastic listing comes up at 2 p.m., theoretically, you could submit an offer by 2:30 p.m. and be under contract by 3 p.m. And this type of first mover advantage is super helpful in a hot market in which sellers are getting multiple offers. It's also helpful if you're conducting a hyper-specific search for a property that must meet a narrow set of criteria, a search in which the deal flow is sparse. This is exactly how I bought one of my properties. I had narrowed my search to a specific subsection of a specific zip code. There was a radius of a few blocks on which I wanted to buy my next single-family home. I wanted, specifically, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family residence constructed after 1980, located in this hyper-geographically constrained subsection of a few blocks. And I wanted the price point to be less than $120,000. And this type of deal, in that location, was basically impossible to find. For approximately 7 months or so, I checked the MLS nearly every day. And for about 7 months, I never saw a listing that resembled the type of listing I was trying to find. And you can imagine how discouraging that is, right? Like, imagine checking the MLS again at the 5-month and 3-week mark, thinking, okay, this feels like the 173rd time I've checked, and still nothing, right? I felt like the mythological Sisyphus pushing a boulder uphill. It seemed like this exercise in futility. And that is the reality of checking the MLS daily. Though in fairness, it's also the reality of narrowing your search to such a hyper-specific criteria. The more specific you are, the smaller the deal flow, and sometimes that's super frustrating. But the good news is that when that property comes up, like when my ideal property finally came up for sale, I spotted it immediately. This particular property matched every specification on my list: location, age, condition, size, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and asking price. And because my search criteria was so specific, I immediately knew that I wanted to make an offer on this property. And because I had spent months continuously searching to no avail, I knew I didn't want to lose a great deal by quibbling over a few $1,000s. I called the listing agent on the day that the listing appeared on the MLS and made a full price offer. To learn more about how to decide how much to offer, check out the Buying and Negotiating module in this course. We offer a ton of information in that module about how to craft an offer. But back to the story. My ability to access the MLS directly, rather than relying on an intermediary, facilitated my ability to respond so quickly. So, in that regard, sure, it was advantageous. But that said, it has major drawbacks and limitations. The drawback is that monitoring the MLS so closely comes at the cost of my time and attention. The limitation is that the MLS was useful in my situation because I was buying a property in the same location in which I hold a real estate agent's license. This is an important note if you're an out-of-state investor, because remember, as we discussed earlier, there are hundreds of MLS platforms, and each one is geographically constrained. Some are limited to the greater metropolitan area of a city. Some are based on counties or collections of counties. Your ability to view properties directly on the MLS will be limited by the geographic scope of the MLS in the city or county in which you hold your license. There are some real estate boards that have MLS reciprocity agreements with other states or counties. This might happen, for example, in a city that's near a state border, such as Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. There are others, however, that do not. The key information is that an agent's license will not grant you access to the MLS nationwide. Your MLS access will be limited to the area in which you hold your license and to any other areas for which those governing boards have reciprocity agreements. And that limitation is, quite frankly, it's a limitation. Sure, you get direct access to the MLS, but perhaps not as much access as you might have imagined. But all of that being said, I understand that this is the part of the video in which we're supposed to be talking about the advantages of holding an agent's license. So let's get back to that. Let's talk about more advantages. Now, as we've discussed, the two advantages of having direct MLS access are improved accuracy and improved speed of viewing new listings. Let's talk about other advantages to holding an agent's license. Advantage number 2, receiving a credit or rebate of the buyer's agent commission. While agent commissions are negotiable, they're often paid by the seller. In these circumstances, the seller might pay a 6% commission for the sale of their property, which is split between the listing agent and the buyer's agent. For example, the agents on both sides of the transaction might receive 2.8%, or 3%, or 3.2%. You might be tempted to get an agent's license in the hopes of collecting a 3% rebate on the purchase price of your home. If you're buying properties frequently, or if you're buying high-priced properties, then this strategy may be worthwhile. But if you buy properties infrequently, such as once a year or less, or if you buy inexpensive properties, then this might not be worth your time. The buyer's agent does not keep their entire portion of the commission. This commission is split between the agent and the broker under which the agent hangs their license. And yes, because I know you're going to ask, all agents must hang their license with a broker or else become a broker themselves. So, the terms of that split, who gets how much between the agent and the broker, those terms are set by the internal policies of the brokerage. Broker ABC might ask for only a 90-10 split, in which the broker only keeps 10% and the agent keeps the other 90%. However, broker XYZ might ask for a 60-40 split, in which the broker keeps 40%. Each broker will have their own internal private policies about how to handle transactions in which the agent represents themselves as the buyer. There may be special policies governing that situation. The takeaway, broadly, is that the agent commission and all other policies around agent commissions are subject to the agreements in place between the agent and the broker. Whether or not the remaining amount net to you after fees and after broker split is worth your time depends on the volume and the size of your transactions. If you're not buying houses frequently, and if you're not buying expensive properties, it might not really be worth your time. Number 3, confidence. All right, finally, let's talk about the invisible benefit of getting your real estate agent license. Obtaining an agent's license may help you overcome imposter syndrome because it demystifies the role that real estate agents play in the process. Before I received my license, I thought of real estate agents as belonging to this world and class somewhere above me, possessed with knowledge that I could never comprehend. Once I received my license, I saw that agents are not mythical experts. They're ordinary people who completed the requisite coursework. When I started buying rental properties, my best friend said, and I quote, "There are so many agents and contractors who invest in rental properties. What makes you think you can do any better?" And that comment stuck with me for years. Like, even now, a decade later, I can still remember feeling shook when she said that. I was like, yeah, you're right. Who am I to think that I can do this? I'm not an agent. I'm not a contractor. I don't have any professional real estate experience. I'm just some kid. That was what I was thinking to myself. However, as I studied the course material required for obtaining an agent's license, I realized that being an agent and being a wise investor are separate skill sets. And once I received the license, I felt more confident. But to be honest, I think that confidence was really the primary advantage that I got. That said, there are other ways to gain confidence. Taking this course, I didn't have a course like this. A course like this, I think, would have brought me that same confidence, because that's how you learn how to be an investor. And again, that's a different skill set. The downsides to getting a real estate agent license. We've talked at length about the advantages, limitations, and drawbacks of getting an agent's license. Let's quickly review some of the more explicit downsides. Number 1, hours. The coursework required to obtain and maintain a license requires hundreds of hours. I completed a 100-hour online course, followed by multiple trips to my brokerage to take the tests and complete ongoing mandatory continuing education requirements. It's not a small feat, and this time comes at the cost of other opportunities. Number 2, the cost. Enrolling in the required courses, plus paying administrative fees, licensing fees, the cost of a background check, the ongoing cost of mandatory continuing education, these add up to a serious investment. Costs vary by location, but it's not unusual to pay $1,500 to $2,000 to obtain a license, excluding the cost of your monthly or annual broker fees. Drawback number 3, tangential relevance. Training to be an agent is not the same thing as training to be a diligent and wise investor. Being an agent and being an investor are distinct skill sets. So don't enroll in agent classes hoping that you will receive investment training. It is not an investment training course. If you want to learn how to invest, stick with courses that are targeted specifically at that topic and that goal. As I reflect on receiving my license many years ago, the natural question that arises is, was it worth it? For me, no. Given that I buy a relatively small volume of properties, 5 properties in 10 years, so on average 1 purchase every 2 years, no, it probably was not worth it. If I were buying a property every 3 to 6 months, then my answer might be different. But at an average rate of 1 property every 2 years, the costs of obtaining and maintaining a license outweigh the benefits.